what's next there, scorekeeper? Stories. Stories are a great attention gain device. In fact, they're so good, we're going to devote a whole half a segment near the end of the day. But before we get into stories, I want to tell you, if you get into the speaking business, it's tough. And I'll tell you why it's tough. The travel is the toughest part of the speaking business. One day I was asked to do 3 presentations, 3 different companies, 3 different cities, 3 degrees below zero. So I fly to Lexington, Kentucky, do the program there, stay there that night, get up the next morning, have to be in Indianapolis to do the luncheon program the next day. And I'm wearing the clothes I have to wear because I have to go right to the limo, right to the place to do the speech. Well, right before I get off the plane, the guy sitting next to me spills a whole Diet Coke right in my lap, soaks me to the bone. This is not good. So, you know how it feels. You're slogging through, I'm slogging through the airport. I get my luggage. I'm going out to wait for the limo, and my pants freeze. This is really not good. Now, who's been to Indianapolis around here? To the airport? You check me the next time you're in Indianapolis. There are no towel dispensers in the airport, in the restrooms in Indianapolis. So I was in there with the hand dryer on the wall, trying to, jump up here and dry my pants off. And the security guard thinks I'm doing something kinky in there. So I get that job done. I fly to Chicago. I get that job done. I'm sitting in Chicago Midway Airport. I'm exhausted. I'm freezing to death. I'm sitting there. I'm there an hour early. Nobody at the gate area. It's kind of like this. And I'm sitting there. And I couldn't even lay down because they had the armrests on the seat. So I couldn't lay down. So I took my big overcoat and folded it over on my lap and put my elbows on it like this. And I must have fallen asleep because I woke up, it must have been about an hour later, and the whole place is full of people like it is now, including the most gorgeous vision of a woman sitting right where Margaret's sitting.
What's her name, Margaret?
Her name might have been Margaret. I never got that far, Margaret. But I am single, so I smiled at her, and she smiled back. But the only way I could characterize her smile is it had what I would call a charitable edge to it. I looked down on my overcoat, and there was a puddle about this big. I had been drooling in front of this lady for the past hour. So I'll tell you what, the travel is the tough part of this business. All right. I just told you a story, right? I even gave you a little clue a story was coming because we were in the story section. Stories are the part of your presentation that can really grab people by their heartstrings. They can really move them to action. They can really make you memorable. And the technique of stories we'll get into a lot deeper later, but one of them is you don't tell people, hey, here's a story, or here's what happened to me on the way to the podium today. You just get right into it. So before you, I suspect, realized it was a story, I was clear into the part about 3 jobs in 3 cities, and you're thinking, okay, well that seems tough, and you're not realizing it's a story. You're just sucked in deep to what I'm talking about, and that's what I'm trying to accomplish. We'll talk about the technique of that later today. That's an attention-gaining device. What's next? Voice inflection. Now, voice inflection is a critical part of your presentation skills. And one of the most severe problems I run into are people that have what we call monotone delivery. They just say the same thing at the same tone the whole time. And I want to show you, I'm going to use the oldest example in the book, but this is such a good example, I'm going to use this one, how voice inflection can change your meaning. I'm going to say the sentence, I never said he stole the money. Okay? Some of you may have heard this before, bear with me. I'm going to change the inflection on the words, and you're going to tell me what the meaning is. Okay? You with me? All right. I never said he stole the money. What's that mean? Somebody else said it. I never said he stole the money. Implied that he stole the money. I never said he stole the money. Borrowed it, embezzled it, got it somehow. I never said he stole the money. Stole something else. See? So the same words can mean infinitely different things depending on your voice inflection. Now, the way I train executives on this, I hope I can find it here quickly. I didn't get a chance to grab it out. I make them read from children's books. And you ought to hear that if you want to see something. I don't know where it is. I think I got one in here somewhere. Oh, yes. Buck, Buck the chicken. Who would like a little help with their voice inflection? All right, come on up here. Let's give her a hand. Wait a minute. Where are we at here? I'm not going to let you give her a pitiful hand like that. Let's give Lisa a hand. That's Buck, Buck the chicken. Have you ever heard of this chicken? I have not heard of this chicken either. I figured this chicken will not sue me like maybe Barney or somebody would when I bought this book. So what we're going to do is we're going to work on voice inflection. And I want you to, do you have any kids or nieces or nephews or anything?
Nieces and nephews, yeah.
Okay, now how old are they?
Old.
Well, let's pretend that they were little, okay? You remember when they were little. How about let's read these 2 pages as if your nieces and nephews were here with us. And as a matter of fact, let's use Alan and Alan as your niece and nephew. Or you want to be the niece and he'll be the nephew. He wants to be the nephew. All right, he'll be the niece. So I want you to read this as if they were 5 and 6 years old.
Nancy's father won her at the country fair. He guessed the number of jelly beans in a jar and took Buck Buck home.
Wait a minute, in a bar? No, wait a minute.
That was my dad.
That was that Freudian slip thing, right? Okay.
Now, Buck Buck lives on the Smith's front porch. Buck Buck, she says, each time they come outside. This is how she got her name.
All right, let's hear it for Lisa. All right. All right, Lisa, thank you. Now, I got to tell you what, some of the executives I work with couldn't even think about doing this. I mean, they're so stuffy and so afraid of opening up. Now, you take the same person and put them with the real niece and nephew, and you know, they just look like the proud father, grandfather, uncle, whatever, or aunt. But in a business setting, as soon as they walk through that door, you know, it's all out the window. It's terminally serious, we call it, okay? So I have to get them to open up because that monotone puts people to sleep faster than anything you can imagine, right? Voice inflection will make your stories come alive, make whatever you say come alive, and I'm going to give you a quick tip on voice inflection. Emphasize in general, the adjectives and the verbs in whatever you say. The adjectives and the verbs when you describe something. So someone give me anything in this room. Cynthia, pick something out that you want me to describe.
The wallpaper.
The wallpaper. All right. Now, this what would you call that, beige?
Yeah.
This beige wallpaper has really intricate flares of color, okay? And they're spaced out considerably, and I see someone has defaced it with a stick pin in the middle. All right, now, the way I described that, I could have said this is a beige piece of wallpaper and it has some splashes of color. So I said beige, the adjective. It's a beige wall with splashes of color. And I don't know what is splashes. That would be, splashes a noun, that'd be a noun, wouldn't it? But of color. And the description, and then I said the stick pin defaced it. Okay, that's a verb. Defaced it, this beige wall. Okay, so if you, in general, look at what you have to say and even write it out and pick out the key adjectives and verbs and emphasize them, and instantly your stories will be more interesting just from that small technique. Okay, that's some story stuff. We'll talk about that later. What's next?
Stage movement.
Stage movement. Another one of the biggest problems I see are people wander around up here. like they're leaning this way and they take a half a step and then they do-si-do over here. You know, this is not good. This is very distracting. Here's your rule. I want you to take 3 steps in a direction for a purpose, which means if I'm going to talk to Warren or this side of the audience, I might go, I can talk while I'm moving, but I want to go 1, 2, 3 and address this side and stop and talk to you. And I can talk while I'm moving. I can talk as I'm taking 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5 steps to the other side of the audience, but I did it specifically, and you know that I'm moving deliberately. This is not good. And I'm pretty much staying close because of the video camera. And you have to think, if you're video or video conferencing, you can't run out of and drive the camera person crazy either. So you don't want to go flopping around like Groucho Marx. But you don't want to be doing this and just wandering and back and forth like this and all this kind of stuff. So 3 steps in a direction for a purpose, stage movement. Okay?
Standing up and sitting down.
Standing up, what's the page number on that?
117.
Please turn to page 117. This is for anybody that's in business. This is not, the speaker would only use this if they're trying to get business. I'm actually going to read this too. It's 117, right? This is called Stand Up and Be Counted. I'll read this to you, but this is a very important section. If you are in business, at a business meeting, and you stand up and use visual aids, these are some of the benefits that you will derive. The Wharton School of Business at the University of Pennsylvania said that you should be a stand-up presenter. Now, these people don't fool around. I mean, these are scientific studies, and they're very highly controlled. They did a controlled study of a situation where the presenters tried to persuade people to invest in a new business venture. The first group, the presenters sat down and talked across a table. For the second group, all the facts and figures were identical, but the presenter stood up and used visual aids. That was the only variables. The results. The first group, 58% of the people agreed to invest in a new business. Not too bad, right? Unless you compare it to the 79% of people who agreed to invest when the presenter stood up and used visual aids. Okay? 21% increase only from standing up and using some visuals. A similar study at the University of Minnesota found, this is important for people in sales, that a customer, if you're not selling a commodity like eggs, a customer will be willing to pay 26% more for the same product or service based on a presentation using visual aids with a stand-up presenter. You getting the idea? 26% more just because of the presence that you command by standing up. Probably has to do with their attention. They're paying attention to what you're saying, and they're seeing it graphically for those people that are more visual in nature rather than auditory or kinetic. They can see what's going on. They hear you, and you standing up. When you stand up, you command attention. I was doing a media seminar not too long ago, and people were introducing themselves. I'm the only one that stood up. And the presenter said, you remember that, Carolyn? You remember we were out at Joel's? And I stood up, and Joel at the end said, did you see what he did? You know, I'm the only one that stood up, and boom. It's like I commanded the room for that time that I was up there. So stand up and be counted. What's the next one?
Asking questions of the audience.
Asking questions of the audience is an attention-gaining device, but don't do it like a politician that you don't care about the answer. You know, if you ask a question, let them get some feedback from you. Don't just say, and don't use the hey, stupid questions. No, hey, you bunch of idiots, would you like to make more money? You know, that's low-level stuff. You know, so ask questions as an attention-gaining device, and you can be funny about it. You can ask funny questions. It's fine, but it's an attention-gaining device. What's next?
Closing.
Oh, if you're doing a question and answer session, this is another real critical thing if you want to look polished. When you do a question and answer session, what I see is if someone does a powerful ending, then they open it up to question and answer. And then the questions start to fade off, and they just kind of go like the Wicked Witch of the West and fade off and drown in their own suit. Terrible. You have 2 closings ready to go. You close the event with a powerful close. You open it up to question and answer. When the time comes to close the question and answer, you do another powerful close. And it makes you look extremely polished, and you don't just fade off into oblivion. Okay? 2 closes when you have a question and answer session. Okay? What's next? Yes, question here.
Quite often I use an evaluation sheet at the end of the program. When do you introduce that? Because the one problem I've run into is that it really is a dead close.
It's a dead.
Yeah. It just kills everything.
The question is about an evaluation sheet at the end. I would do my big, powerful close, and then I have the meeting planner take care of that so that I'm off stage, and I have some gift that we'll pull out of the hat for them to fill out the evaluation as a prize. But I let the meeting planner take care of all that. If you do it yourself, you can do it, but you've got to be real fun and have some one-liners as people are filling them out. And there's some cute lines about it, like you can say, now, please fill out the evaluations. We're going to do a drawing. We're going to give you some gifts for doing this. And then as they're doing it, you walk around and say, listen, profanity will only be accepted if it has an artistic value, okay? Things of that nature so that you can have some fun while you're doing it. Because you're right, it is a dead period, okay? All right, what's next?
Showing visuals.
Showing visuals is an attention-gaining device. We're not going to go in depth on that today, but I'll show you some now and show you some cool overhead tricks. One is this little flap you see right here. See, one of the problems you have with overheads is the bulbs will blow on you, and they're pretty reliable, but the times that they blow is when you turn them on and off. So if I'm using them a lot, I leave it on, and then I control the on-off with this. And I look really polished. I'm looking at you. This is a reveal technique that I'm using right now. But I can turn it back off easily in full eye contact with you. And one of the tips is you don't talk to the visual, you talk to the people. All right? You see so many people, oh, yeah, well, let me tell you about this. And then they just stand there and look at it. That's no good. And I will tell you about this. This is one of the forms of humor, acronyms and abbreviations. And you can take your pre-programmed work, and this is a way to use humor without people, without telling jokes. And so this was a hotel where IOC meant like something to them. And so I changed it to I'm ordering Chinese, or I'm obviously crazy, or I'm out of coffee. See, this IOC is what meant something to them. It was like International Operators Council or something. ADR is average daily rate, I think it is, and I said it's all dated rooms. To them, that was funny, and that all came from pre-programmed research that meant something to them. And I did a couple other ones, but my favorite one of all time is this one, ANA. You may recognize that from All Nippon Airlines. Well, it's a good thing that they had a U.S. advisor before they rolled out this particular acronym for their company, because the original was ANAL. That was the original one they had until they got it checked with the U.S. And how'd you like to see that on a 747 coming at you? You know? Okay, notice here that that's called a reveal technique. And notice that there's not too many words on this visual. And it's color. Color is 43% more persuasive. It's cheap to do now because of color printers. I had a lady one time, I saw her video. She had the highest tech stuff available. She had a video on the internet, and she's there saying, well, the really impactful and dynamic part of my presentation is my PowerPoint. You know, and I'm thinking, you better have more than that, lady, to save you. She was the pits. You know, thinking that PowerPoint is going to make a great presentation, all right? It can be an adjunct, but you better know what to do, because I've seen more of them fail than succeed. So you better know what to do and be great by yourself and use that as a tool. Okay, so anyway, don't put too much stuff on there. Line them up nice, make them color. You could use this cool trick to keep from the bulb blowing and all that stuff. So, and we couldn't do it with the logistics here, but you'd like to fill up the screen. This screen is too big for this room, or we didn't have really the room for it, but you want them to and project them high so that the people in the back can see all those kinds of things. So And that's just one kind of visual. You have this visual, this is a visual. You are your most powerful visual. You know, your props are kinds of visuals, but people in the audience that assimilate with their eyes will be attracted to that. So you need to put a portion of that in your presentations. You know, there was an important topic that was left off of the main tape, and that's the topic of closings. The first thing you do with a closing is decide whether you want a serious or funny closing. That's a fairly simple decision to make. If you have a serious topic, it's perfectly acceptable to use humor throughout the presentation. But it's best to end in a serious fashion because that's what the audience will think that you think about the topic and the value of the topic, that it was serious. Now, if you are there to entertain, you have an option. If you are there just to have a good time with people and there's not much of a message, I suggest ending in a funny fashion. Make them laugh and go off to a lot of laughter and applause. But if you're there with a combination, serious topic delivered in a lighthearted manner, you could end in a very serious fashion, and that great contrast creates a big impact on the audience. So the first decision you make with closings is serious or funny. Now, one of the ways I do closing is I paraphrase a quotation. And when I say paraphrase, I say that because I'm not real good at memorizing exact wording. So I usually give myself an out by saying, well, I think it was so-and-so that said this, or I think so-and-so said this. So one of the ones I used to use a lot in the humor in the workplace presentations was from Mark Twain. I would end by saying, folks, my time with you is growing short, and I just want you to remember something my old buddy Mark Twain used to say. The next time you're looking in the mirror and you see a few extra wrinkles, just remember those wrinkles are where smiles have been all these years. Thank you very much. I'm Tom Antion. So that was using a quotation to end the program. Now, one thing that I always want you to do, especially in the more serious and educational topics or motivational, is do some type of call to action. So get people to move from here to there. If they just hear you and don't do anything, you really haven't been that effective. So you could say, well, we've talked about X, Y, and Z technique. I challenge you to put them in place in your workplace and see the results immediately. I know you will. Thank you. I'm Tom Antion. So there's a call to action. Now, one of the big problems I see with closings is people do a big, powerful closing and then they fade off into oblivion. Now, I'm going to give you an example of how this works. Now, the way it works is somebody does a real good closing, and instead of standing there and appreciating the audience and letting the audience appreciate them, what they do is they fade off into oblivion. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a closing, just a brief closing for you in a serious manner and do it right, and then I'm going to show you how bad it looks when you do it wrong. All right, here we go. I'm going to back up a little bit and start over. You know, folks, my time with you is growing short, and I really believe in education, and I know that the people in this room are molding our most important, valuable natural resource, our children. Thank you very much. I'm Tom Antion. Thank you. You see, I'm just standing here and shutting up and thanking them, and the power is all with them. Now, let me show you how an untrained speaker will mess up doing this and reduce all that power that they generated. Watch this. Well, folks, my time with you is growing short, and I do believe in education, and I know the people in this room are helping to mold our most important natural resource, our children. Applause, applause, applause. And then you're over here picking papers up. This is terrible. When you end and you close a presentation, you go to the front of the stage as far forward as you've ever been. You sit there, you deliver your hard ending, and you shut up. You stand still and you shut up like I'm going to do right now on this section about closings. What's next?
Freeze frame video notes.
Freeze frame video notes, that's the next section. So we have completed another section. So let's recap this a little bit. What are some of the keepers you got out of this section? Look back through your notes.
Sock buddy.
The sock buddy, of course. The sock buddy is the big deal. Yes?
Get right into a story.
Get right into your stories. Make it happen before they know what hit them. Yes, CJ.
Illustrate point.
Formula. Point, illustrate, point. What else?
Movement on stage.
Stage movement. 3 steps.
Use pre-planned ad-libs.
Pre-planned ad-libs to prepare for disaster. CJ.
Presentation, the 7-star, 30 to 50 times.
Practice your bits and chunks 30 to 50 times. Yes, like to closing when you have question and answer session. Okay. Yes, one more.
Coke freezes at -3 degrees.
Diet Coke freezes at -3 degrees on that one. We're going to come back with a freeze frame video section that you don't want to miss. It's 10 minutes till 1. We're a little behind, but 10 minutes till 2. We'll start again. We'll see you in a little while. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.